Warning: this video will be discussing subjects involving sexual assault and murder. This video may not be suitable for all audiences, so if this content bothers you, please turn the video off now. This is Christie Lynn Mullens. She was a 14-year-old girl whose rape and murder had, until recently, been shrouded in mystery. Really, look at that picture for a moment. Keep it in your mind as her story unfolds. In 1975, 14-year-old Christie Mullens was enjoying a summer's day until she was raped and violently murdered behind a shopping center less than a week before she turned 15. While a culprit was soon arrested, the story was far from over. Shortly after the horrific crime occurred, a man was identified as her attacker and charged, but the truth is rarely so cut and dry. Due to a series of mistakes in a grossly botched police investigation into Christie's case, the real killer remained at large for 40 years. Join us as we uncover the secrets of Christie Mullens' murder investigation. But before we continue, our thoughts are with the Mullens family for all they have had to endure over the past decades. Christie was born to Norman and Phyllis Mullens on August 28, 1960, in Columbus, Ohio. In August of 1975, less than a week before her next birthday, Christie was your average 14-year-old American girl. She was also a big sister and a younger sister as one of 5 girls and a daughter to loving parents. She attended Whetstone High School, and she wanted to live. Her young life was filled with all of the typical things that teenage girls at that time loved. She was excited for her birthday, getting ready for the school year ahead, and enjoying her life, knowing and thinking she had decades left to enjoy it. According to her sister, Christie was a talented, musically gifted, and inquisitive girl who cherished routine. Without fail, Christie always ate Raisin Bran for breakfast and never turned down a bowl of chili. That was until her innocence and life were callously ripped away from her in one fell swoop. On August the 23rd of that year, Christie's lifeless body was found in the woods behind the Graceland Shopping Center, not far from her home. She had been raped and beaten to death with a wooden board. According to reports, Christie was leaning against a guardrail when a male dragged her into the woods, where she would meet her horrific end. A short time after the vicious attack, a nearby family was awoken by their frightened son. According to a witness, 25-year-old Henry H. Newell Jr. returned home and awoke his family, telling them that they had to speak to the police because he found a body in the woods. Shortly after, Henry and his wife informed the local police that they had been walking in the woods where they saw a man beating Christie's lifeless body before he ran off. Much to the horror of the local community, the beaten, half-naked, and tied-up body of Christie was found soon after. Thankfully, the Good Samaritan who came forward, who also happened to be a neighbor of the Mullens family, was also happy to describe the man he saw. Meanwhile, the local community reeled from the horrible tragedy that transpired. Every neighbor asked each other how something like this could have happened in their area. Who could have possibly done something so brutal to someone so young? Within days of the crime, local police got a major break in the case. A police officer encountered 26-year-old John Carmen, who was a perfect match for the composite sketch based on Henry's description of the suspect. John was immediately taken in for questioning for his involvement in the crime. They had their suspect, so they thought. After his arrest, John was interrogated by police for 5 hours before he confessed to taking Christie's innocence before taking her life. On September the 3rd, 1975, John Carmen was officially charged with murder, rape, and kidnapping. Though criminal prosecutors declined to seek the death penalty, John would spend the next 25 years in prison. Thankfully, John only served 2, but it was 2 years he should have never had to serve in the first place. For as badly as local police had wanted to get their man, the arrest and investigation had some massive holes in them. As pointed out by the ACLU, for starters, John was severely mentally challenged. Reportedly, he had an IQ of just 50. What's more, there was no lawyer present during his interrogation. Due to these 2 factors, The American Civil Liberties Union determined that John could not understand his constitutional rights during questioning. This means that his confession was inadmissible in a court of law. After John's release, further evidence came to light that proved his innocence in the case. Specifically, the fact that witnesses had placed John elsewhere at the time Christie met her end, as well as the fact that John was homosexual. If not for the work of the ACLU, Rick Kelly and James Yavarosik, who were student journalists at the Ohio State University student newspaper The Lantern, John may have had to serve the full 25 years unjustly. They had interviewed witnesses that the police had failed to. However, those were far from the only errors. Reportedly, police at the time ignored the handprints on both a t-shirt that was used to cover Christie's face and the board that was used to end her life. Had police investigated these further, they would have found the real killer. As it stood, local police also failed to interview potential witnesses and botched the police lineup. In fact, the only witness that had been spoken to about the case was the young man who found the body in the first place, none other than Henry Newell Jr. In the years that followed Christie Lynn Mullens' horrible end, people did what they did after a tragedy. They moved on. Some did, that is. The Mullens family had to live with the fact that forevermore, there would be a Christie Lynn Mullens-sized hole in all of their lives. Norman and Phyllis would never again get to hug their daughter or tell her they loved her. Her younger sister Kim, who idolized her older sister, would never again get to be around her hero. As of August the 23rd, 1975, Christie Lynn Mullens lived only in the memories of those who loved her. Meanwhile, the tragic death and mystery surrounding it became an obsession for her grieving father. No parent should ever have to bury a child. All the while, the real perpetrator of the horrible crime that led to her end walked free. As with any small community, rumors traveled at the speed of thought, and there is much speculation about who the real killer is. Many in town had suspected the Good Samaritan, Henry H. Newell Jr., including members of his own family. During a following trial in 1977, testimony from a member of Newell's family contradicted Newell's claims that he was a witness to Mullens' beating. Meanwhile, in the same trial, a friend of Newell's claimed that Newell had confessed to him that he had killed Christie Mullens. Reportedly, Newell Jr. had only intended to knock the girl out, but things went too far. Yet, with John Carman in jail, police at the time considered the case closed, so her real, suspected killer remained free. But the story didn't end there. Almost 4 decades had passed since Christie Lynn Mullens met her end at the tender age of 14. It would take that long for her surviving family members to be awarded any semblance of justice. In 2015, the Columbus Police Department reopened the file on Christie. After a thorough investigation, it was determined that her former neighbor, Henry H. Mullens Jr., was in fact the perpetrator of the gruesome crime that led to Christie Lynn Mullens' end. A name we keep repeating because after being forgotten by so many for so long, it's important that she be remembered. Following the determination of Newell's guilt, some of his family members, including his niece, spoke out about their knowledge of his crime. Newell's niece claimed that he confessed to her about the killing of Christie Lynn Mullens years after the fact. She went on to further claim that her uncle confessed to her about sexually assaulting someone in her car and killing another woman in Alabama. According to his niece, he never showed any remorse for his crimes. As for why his niece stayed silent for decades, she was reportedly afraid for her life, convinced her uncle would kill her if she spoke up. If only she had spoken up decades earlier, she may have prevented other crimes from happening.
The suspect responsible for the death is Henry H. Newell Jr.
While it is good that the truth had finally come to light about the murderer, Henry H. Newell Jr., the Mullens family was still robbed of justice. This is because Henry H. Newell Jr. passed away from lung cancer in 2013, 2 years before the cold case investigation started. He was able to live a long life after he robbed the young Christie Lynn Mullens of her life less than a week before her birthday. Henry had indeed robbed the family of justice from beyond the grave. He would never pay for his crimes.
We knew all along it was Henry Newell. At least most people did.
One of Christie's sisters, Melanie, later stated, "We knew all along it was Henry Newell. It won't consume us, but we want to know why he was never charged." Further adding, several facets of the original investigation involved improper investigative techniques and procedures that were directly responsible for the arrest of the wrong man and the failure to follow leads that may have led to Mr. Newell as the primary suspect of this homicide. While it is commendable that the Columbus Police Department recognized their extreme errors in the subsequent investigation of Henry Newell Jr. and apologized for their lack of action, it still doesn't change things. It doesn't change the fact that due to their shoddy excuse for police work, they coerced a mentally challenged man into confessing to a crime he did not commit. It doesn't take away the time that the innocent man had to spend in jail for that crime. And more, their apology doesn't negate the fact that they allowed a killer and rapist to walk free for decades. Sadly, Kim Mullens, one of Christie's sisters, put it best. There's no one to punish. They knew all these years that they should have known it was him, and they just looked the other way.
We were just that normal family, you know? I mean, 5 kids growing up, you know, and this didn't happen in your...
While the Mullens family gained closure, the police department robbed them of justice. While they were grateful for the apology and the work done in the following years, more could have and should have been done. In the following years, a question still lingers. What other crimes was Henry Newell Jr. allowed to get away with? Thank you for joining us as we delved into the murder of Christie Lynn Mullens and the botched criminal investigation that followed. Her story and shoddy police work done in the wake of her murder raise further questions about the police investigation and interrogation tactics. We would like to believe things have improved dramatically in this day and age. The Columbus Police Department's shoddy initial investigations also leave us with the lingering questions. Did any of the investigators feel any guilt about potentially sending an innocent, mentally challenged man to jail for a crime he didn't commit? Why didn't they pursue a case against Henry H. Newell Jr. after people pointed to him in 1977?
For them all to go down with him and tell him that they found the body while they were hiking.
Finally, should his niece have potentially risked her own life to bring her uncle to justice long ago? We want to hear your thoughts. Share your insights and reflections on Christie's story in the comments below. Your perspective adds depth to our explanation of true crime mysteries. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest videos. Your support fuels our quest to unravel the most intriguing narratives in the world of true crime. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and may the pursuit of truth guide your path.